So, hello and welcome. This is the first very, very experimental, very proof of concept video. It's the first time I've ever done like a reaction kind of video. We're using very, very subpar equipment. This is a PS3 camera, which explains the absolutely horrible video quality. If this is something that people want to see, and I can see there's definitely merit in carrying on with doing it, I will by all means invest in a better camera. For now, let's just see how it takes. This is my reaction, not as a first time viewer, not as a second time viewer, third, fourth, or fifth, as a many time viewer of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. This is, just to get a bit out of context, I'm mainly known online as Stars Tyrant. I'm mainly affiliated online with the Resident Evil community, and most people know me from doing the Project Umbrella podcasts, and I do Resident Evil streams and occasionally the odd other video game. If there's anything in my life that rivals my love for Resident Evil, it's Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Buffy the Vampire Slayer is, in my mind, and this will never change, I'm confident in saying that through my entire life, Buffy the Vampire Slayer is the most important television show that I will ever watch. It came at such a profound part of my life. I was the same age as Buffy when when the show started, and I was the same age, obviously all the way through. And so I grew up with the character. I grew up with the world that these people inhabited, and it became, a really strikingly profound part of my life. And I love it dearly. I've revisited it, from start to finish a couple of times in the last few years. Most recently was in 2015. I spent from June to November marathoning the entire show. It was absolutely wonderful. Going back to it, and I go back to it regularly. It's a show that's never left me. These characters at times I've felt closer to than actual blood relatives, if you like. This is a really dear show for me, and I've kind of been inspired by a lot of the people I've been watching react to Buffy for the first time, and I was wondering whether it would be interesting to present a reaction video, not from, like I say, someone who's seen it 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 times, but someone who's seen it many, many times, and to see what still works. It's nearly all of it. It nearly all still works. It's very much a timeless show because it can just relate to anybody who watches it, really. And I just thought it'd be interesting to maybe present like a reaction video, and you're not going to get my first reactions, but you're maybe going to see things that still work. And I'm not very good at putting myself in front of a camera, so I apologise if a lot of it seems very green or not very if it doesn't seem to come as natural to me as it does to like other people you may watch. But it's something that I'd really love to share, and if people like what they see here, and this is very much a proof of concept, this is not a refined or practiced thing I do here, but if people like what they see, then it's something I'd very much love to carry on with. As I've got older and I've become a parent myself, time has become so limited in terms of what I can dedicate my time to, but returning back to Buffy is something I always want to do every few years. And with me starting streaming this last year, I thought, well, what a perfect sort of platform and time it would be to do something like that. So I'm not going to waffle on much longer, but if you certainly like what you see, please by all means hit me up on Twitter, put some messages in the comments, tell me what I'm doing right, tell me what I'm doing wrong, and we'll see where we go from there. I mean, what I'll say is I'll definitely do the first series, and then depending on how it's sort of been received, we'll go on. I mean, I may even do the second series because that's when the real meat of the show begins. There's so much more to talk about in the second series. I love the first series, but it's the second series where it really found itself, and anyone who's watched Buffy will agree. So just as a rule, if you've never watched Buffy before, don't watch these streams, basically, because I'm going to be talking forward. I'll be talking about how certain things in certain episodes pay off later, and we'll be talking about that as they happen. this is for people who've seen this show many, many times, and it'd just be interesting going back down this journey, down this road together. So yeah, this is going to be great for me, and I hope just people out there can just get something from it, even if it's, you know, not a lot. It's going to be fun. So this is welcome to the Hellmouth. Let's begin.
In every generation, there is a chosen one. She alone will stand against the vampires, the demons, and the forces of darkness. She is the Slayer.
This is filmed in Torrance, in Los Angeles. This is actually Torrance High School. I think this is a set, but all the exterior stuff was Torrance. Just as an aside, this is the Region 1 DVDs, which just have the show in the correct 4:3 made-for-television aspect ratio. We don't have any widescreen versions here, and certainly none of the HD remasters. So we have a very early Julie Benz, who is playing Darla here.
On top of the gym, it's so cool. You can see the whole town.
And this scene is just a wonderful bait and switch. It's one of the first times that you really realise this was a clever show.
Count on it.
It's worth saying that this series was not composed by Christoph Beck. If you can really level one flaw at the first series, is that the music's it's really not very good.
Don't want to be late for your first day. Okay. Have a good time.
This differs from the pilot almost straight away because we get to meet Christine Sutherland as Joyce, who did not appear in the unaired pilot. If everyone's ever seen it, you can look it up on YouTube. But it's actually not that bad. It's not as bad as Joss likes to make out. It's pretty neat. There's a couple of good scenes in it which I wish they'd actually carried on into this.
Excuse me, coming through, pardon me, excuse me.
Xander never ever rides a skateboard after this episode, by the way.
Excuse me. Hey, Jesse, what's what?
And here is Eric Balfour as Jesse, who, as many long-time Buffy fans will know, just wanted to do the bait and switch he does for much later in the show, in that he wanted to put Eric Balfour as Jesse in the opening titles, and I think budget and time wouldn't allow it. And that's because Jesse will die in the next episode, and it would have been a nice, very cool thing to think, you know, wow, they've killed off one of our main characters.
All the kids here are free to call me Bob.
Bob,
But they don't.
I know my transcripts are a little colorful.
Hey, we're not caring about that. Do you think colorful is the word? Not dismal?
Wasn't that bad.
You burned down the gym.
I can't remember whether BBC Two at the time sold this as being like a sequel to the movie, or whether that was just a misconception I had at the time. But I remember watching this thinking, and then when Principal Flutie there just says, you know, that you burned down the gym, I remember thinking, well, that didn't happen in the movie.
Thanks.
I don't know.
And it was only afterwards that I realised that it was very much different continuity, and this was not meant to be Christy Swanson's Buffy.
Thanks.
It's certainly worth saying that the actors seem a little bit green around the characters at the moment, but I still think they do a great job, being that this is the first episode. Sarah in particular is brilliant at showing sort of a fish out of a water sort of environment, if you like. And there's a couple of scenes coming up which are absolutely masterful.
Will you be okay here? If you hang
So I just can't help but smile when I watch this show. It's a natural reaction. It's almost like a muscle memory now.
Trendy but tasty.
John Tesh,
The devil.
that was pretty much a gimme, but
See, it's interesting here because you're seeing the Buffy that is slowly weaned away during the first season of this show, you know, and as we get in the flashback and becoming part 1, we see she was very much the Cordelia of her
No
school,
wonder you're such a guy magnet. Are you done?
and that's going to slowly disappear over the course of, you know, this 2-parter. And already you're starting to see it here, and it's
know your losers.
it's a
Once you
great,
can
like the
identify
look
them
Sarah
side by
gives
side,
here is
they're
it's
a lot
wonderful.
easier to avoid.
And you just heartbreaks for Alison in this episode.
And
She's
if
so
you're
good.
not too swamped with catch.
And here we go to the masterstroke of the show, which was casting Anthony Head as Rupert Giles.
Great.
Sometimes I'm just going to let scenes play out, guys, because I don't want to talk over them.
20th century.
What you're after.
That's not what I'm looking for.
Are you sure?
I'm way sure.
My mistake. So, what is it you said?
Pa, she was starting fights. Neg Lee. Well, I would have been blue, and she said
In any normal school in the world, that school would be shut for the rest of the day. But in Sunnydale, we just carry on.
Hi. Willow, right?
Why? I mean, hi. Did you want me to move?
Why don't we start with, hi, I'm Buffy. And then let's segue directly into me asking you for a favor. It doesn't involve moving, but it does involve hanging out with me for a while.
But aren't you hanging out with Cordelia?
I can't do both.
Not legally.
Look, I really want to get by here. New school, and Cordelia's been really nice. To me, anyway, but,
See, the dialogue is razor sharp straight away, and that's it. You know, when I was sat watching this, I was very cynical about watching this. And straight away, this dialogue, it just starts to win you over.
Meet in the library?
Or not.
To the people who've watched the show from start to finish, wouldn't it have been great if the original plans had worked out and they got Jesse back for conversations with dead people?
Gee, everyone wants to know about me. Oh, great. Okay, what's the
This is
stitch?
an amazing
You
scene.
heard about the dead guy,
Just look
right?
at Sarah
Dead guy
here.
in the locker?
Yes.
Because it's the weirdest thing. He's got 2 little holes in his neck, and all his blood's been drained. Blood.
The
It's like a
chemistry
whole big
between these
sucking
two
thing.
is
Mostly,
immediate
that's just
straight
gonna kill you.
away.
Why am I still talking to you?
You really have no idea what's going on, do you? You think it's coincidence you're being here? That boy was just the beginning.
Oh, why can't you people just leave me alone?
Because you are the Slayer. Into each generation, a Slayer is born. One girl in all the world, a chosen one. I believe this whole area is a center of mystical energy. Things gravitate.
So this
towards
was
it
the
as
scene that
you might
made me
find us.
start to realise,
Like
because
them.
bearing in mind, like I say, I watched this on a whim. I wasn't sure about it. I basically watched it for Sarah. I'm sorry to say, you know, she was, you know, the main thing promoted on BBC Two, and then when I tuned in, I sat captivated. Even by the dialogue. I mean, I thought Sarah was beautiful, but the dialogue was starting to win me over, and then it was this scene,
And secondly, I'm
the bit coming up in a
Hey, I
second.
know. Prepares me for what?
It's this
For
bit.
getting kicked out of school? For losing all of my friends? For having to spend all of my time fighting for my life and never getting to tell anyone because I might endanger them? Go ahead. Prepare me.
And I think Giles recoils as much as we do watching it, and I do now, you know, watching it years later. It's a scene that kind of transcended what the show was advertised as being.
What's getting worse?
It made you feel like this was a flesh and blood character, you know, and Buffy was... She didn't want to be there, she just wanted to be a normal girl, and that's the first time you really get to see it. You're not watching a show about a hero yet, that's obviously going to come later. At this point she's very reluctant, she just wants her normal life. The character she grows up to be is... I can only describe as the character who will be my hero.
This is Sunnydale.